Pick a window. This is the Defenestrate Media Network.
The Left Show is not intended for youngsters. It's not intended for the sensitive. It's certainly not intended for right-wingers. Use your own discretion. Awful swearing.
You know who the best-looking person sitting up there was? Who was it with the cowboy hat?
No, J.M. Bell.
J.M. Bell. I don't know who that is.
He hosts a podcast.
Well, he was good-looking.
Joining me this week, very special guest. We've known each other for going on at least 20 years.
Yeah, and this is the first time you've ever invited me on your show. This is bullshit.
It is bullshit, and I apologize. It's okay. Let me do this. Let me run your bio really quick. So, I mean, you've done various radio gigs throughout your life.
Mm-hmm.
I first became aware of you when you were working for KSL. Then you went over to KCPW. You were the news director there.
Yep.
In which one of my favorite misadventures was you sending me in 2008 up to the Sundance Film Festival.
Yes, and I informed you that Heath Ledger had died. You were one of the first people up there who knew.
Yeah. Yeah, that was creepy. And then I just had one bad experience after another up there, except for I got to see so many cool movies thanks to you. And it was like, I mean, it was a highlight. But I remember doing podcasts for you, and they were all like, well, here's everything I screwed up today. There was I had a lot of fun. I'm the reason that the press room at Sundance closed at 10 as opposed to stayed open for 24 hours because I was sleeping there. And they didn't like that. Okay, so KCPW. Then you moved over as managing editor of UtahPolicy.com, which, as I recall, was a bit of a controversial move.
Not really. I mean, it was just moving from radio to multimedia, and at that point, it was just a news aggregator, and I was able to build it into something much more than that.
It was. You did really good work there. I mean, it's. You had a lot of folks on the left that are like, "Why is he working for somebody on the right?" Which is the controversy I was talking about.
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
the owner, but the owner left me alone, and he basically, he finally decided that he finally sold it in 2020 because he was ready to retire, and I think he was tired of my partner in crime, Bob Burnick, and I stirring up trouble because we had spent an entire weekend talking with him about a story that we reported, and it turned out to be true, but we were being very careful about it, that during the 2020 race, then Governor Gary Herbert asked Republican Thomas Wright to drop out of the Republican primary race because to give Spencer Cox, his lieutenant governor, a better chance of winning. And Thomas Wright decided not to do that, and I had very good sourcing on that story.
I remember. It was just another thing that Herbert did that nobody really checked him on after.
Mm-hmm. Because
I had him in 2016, and we had that whole him with the group of lobbyists where he was like,
"I'll be your Huckleberry.
Yeah, you give me money, I'll do whatever you ask."
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, "That's huge!" And Utah voters were like, "No, that's how politics works."
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's see. Then you went from Utah Policy over to the Salt Lake Tribune, where I am of the humble opinion that you did exemplary work.
Yeah, I mean, I really, I value my time there. I enjoyed working with a number of the colleagues there. I always look back on that time fondly. It was interesting going from working on my own to working in a team, and that didn't always mesh.
No. And then you did something I considered heroic and now you're running Utah Policy or Utah Political Watch.
Yes, I launched Utah Political Watch in September of 2024. And it has, it's as my wife says, this thing wants to live. There's clearly an appetite for what I have to offer in the reporting space. And, I decided that after I left the Tribune, I was not done reporting on this area. And I don't think a lot of people expected me to do that.
I was surprised, but also delighted, because I think the work that you've been doing lately with Utah Political Watch is some of the best stuff I've seen you do. I mean, it is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It is in depth. It is well researched. You're spitting facts like it's your job, because it is. And I every time you pop up on my TikTok feed, you're one of the ones I know I'm going to watch all the way through.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And the thing about going to TikTok, that was not done. That was done in protest, but you have to go where the audience is. And I'll tell you exactly why I made that decision, because I was having a conversation with my brother-in-law. This was probably back in 2021, 2022. And he mentioned that he got all, and he's a very smart person, but he said he gets all of his news from TikTok. And I'm like, well, that's horrifying. But if that's the place it is, if that's where people are getting their news, that's where you got to go to the audience. And you've been on TikTok. There is a distinct lack of authoritative voices on that platform, but people pretending to be authoritative voices, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about half the time, and they're using work from real journalists to fuel what they're doing. There's a lobbying firm, a PAC in town. They produce some fairly entertaining social media video, but all of their work, they're cribbing from actual journalists. They're taking the work of actual journalists. And I've had to shame them a couple of times for not crediting the people who actually did the work that's fueling their content.
It reminds me of, back in the early days when you and I were first getting to know each other, and, we were all blogging like that was the be all end all, because it was at the time. And we would always, I'm religious about it just because I am who I am, but it's like you always cite your sources. If you're going to steal something from a reporter, you put it in a block quote and you make sure that there is a link to the entire work there. And that doesn't feel as important now as it did then to credit sources.
Well, there actually has been a backlash. I don't know if you've come across Aaron Parnas on TikTok or on social media. He's got a massive following, and journalists finally got tired of him taking their work and presenting it as his own, and they started shaming him on social media in videos and tagging him. And he's finally started to add links to the journalists who are actually doing the work for him. He gets some scoops because he's got a huge following and people are going to tell him stuff. Another one is Yashar Ali. That's another guy, who, is out there just kind of like posting all day long because that's their job. And they talk about, I did 20 videos, but you didn't do any actual real reporting for the most part. But they're finally starting to credit it. The one outlet that does not credit anybody else's work, and it is a real sore spot with a lot of people, is the New York Times. They will not credit anyone else for reporting. They don't provide links to other sources. They still will not do that, which I think is a shame. But you'll see the Washington Post break a story, and the New York Times will reference it, but they won't link to it. It's wild.
It is a little nutty, especially in this day and age. I don't know. I
can go on and on about journalism and what I think the state of journalism. I don't know if you saw my rant that I did in one of my live streams, but posted on TikTok and everywhere else, just about here in Utah, we've got a real problem of lobbyists pretending that they're journalists. And I think that is a real problem, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. But you've got a show like the Hinckley Report. The host of that, Jason Perry, nice guy. He's a lobbyist. He is a lobbyist for the University of Utah. So when he has lawmakers on his show to talk about the issues, it's not an honest discussion, because he doesn't want to really dig into the controversial part of things, because he has to lobby these people, because that's his job. It drives me nuts.
It's the newsroom line from Jane Fonda. I have business before this Congress.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like, and you've got, there's a couple of TV stations who have podcasts about politics, and their co-hosts or their experts are lobbyists. They don't tell anyone that they're lobbyists, but they are 100% lobbyists.
Maybe that's what I need to do to book a gig, is register as a lobbyist.
Probably.
Huh. Didn't think about that. Well, let's take the next few minutes and talk about. I want to start with the Utah legislative session that just ended here, a few days ago. There was a lot of heavy-handed, going after the LGBTQ community. That's the kind of stuff I pay attention to these days because it's family. I know that Trevor Lee tried and failed to pass 12 bills.
Yes.
Each more odious than the last.
He had a lot of anti-immigration stuff, and a lot of stuff that was sponsored by the far right. And I think that's one of the things that I'm able to do, is explain where this stuff comes from better than anyone else in the market, because I deliberately spend time swimming in some of these internet cesspools so I can understand where this stuff is coming from. And I can spot it when it gets, sort of washed and then brought into mainstream politics. But yeah, Trevor Lee had 12 bills. The one that went the furthest was a very innocuous bill at first, and it would allow people to register to vote when they got a hunting or a fishing license. Fine. And but once it passed the House, they added a section to it before it passed the House that would allow for auditing of the voter rolls. Now, the way it was written was, was very generic, but I know where that came from because they tried to do it last year. This was not his piece of legislation. This was Carrie Ann Lisenby once again trying to open the door, because they said that it would allow a third party, the lieutenant governor's office, to come in and contract with a third party to audit our voter rolls. But it would turn over not just the voter rolls, but a whole bunch of other information, including Medicaid records, people who signed up for that, property tax information. And that all goes back to this gentleman by the name of Jay Valentine, who has developed this quote unquote technology he calls fractal technology that he's using to try to detect voter fraud. This stuff does not work. His technology was originally funded by Mike Lindell. He's an election denier. And Carrie Ann Lisenby tried to do this last year. She had an election bill, and it was more written exactly for him because it would said quantum technology or whatever the hell his stuff is called. And I noticed that, and I started to write about that, and she had to pull that stuff out of the bill because people were reading my stuff, and they this is written for one person. This is written for one company. And so that bill didn't pass. But then when they reinserted it into Trevor Lee's bill as it left the House and moved over to the Senate, it's the same damn stuff. It's exactly the same information. It was the same provision, and that was just a bridge too far for the Senate, and they tabled the bill, and none of his other legislation got anywhere else. He did have a really anti-immigrant bill. It originally was HB 88. We'll talk, and if you want to talk about that, we can. But it was HB 88, and it would deny undocumented immigrants access to public services. You would have to collect, you would have to do proof of citizenship when people signed up. And that bill wasn't going anywhere. It got out of a House committee, but the House was like, this is inhumane. There was another immigration bill by Representative Lisa Shepard from Provo, and she and Lee hijacked it. He inserted his the main provisions from HB 88 into this bill. It passed the House, but it didn't go anywhere because they could not find anyone in the Senate who wanted to sponsor it. So it did pass the House, but it just sat there and sat there and sat there, and so that died as well.
Get hurt in the game? We tough it out. Feel exhausted? We push on. Feeling down? We pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. But there are times when bootstraps aren't enough. When stress gets to us and we need to talk to someone about what we're really going through. So we're going to reach out because sometimes mental health is not a one-person job. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
This week on the world's greatest comic book podcast, in Tinseltown, is Starfleet Academy successful?
Is it ever?
Is your metric from the 60s?
What creative shakeup happened on Supergirl?
Dun dun dun.
Shake weights.
Is the new Buffy the Vampire Slayer series going forward? We watched The Bride, Monarch, The Pit, Monte Cristo, Young Sherlock, and Starfleet Academy. Comics, we dive deep into the censorship in H.R. 7661 and what it means for comic book creators.
Write a postcard.
Pesky Republicans.
We read Logan, Black, White, and Blood #3, Alias Red Band #1, The Hulk and Doctor Strange, Wonder Woman 29, and The Muppets Noir #1. All that in Firefly news.
Is it good news?
Face Front True Believers is the world's greatest comic book podcast, available Tuesdays on thecomicbookpodcast.com and just about anywhere you can find podcasts.
Do you guys know that geese are hard of hearing?
No.
Every time you ask them a question, they go, huh? I love that fucking joke. Trevor is, well, he's anathema to me. I don't care for him. I've called him out loud quite often. I know he doesn't listen to the show, so he's probably never heard it. But I have, for the last couple of sessions, invited him to climb into a ring with me for an officiated event. And I can't seem to get a hold of him.
Oh no, he won't do that because he likes to go on to, and that's what a lot of these lawmakers like to do is they like to go into friendly arenas. And I don't know if you're aware of John Johnson's podcast. It's terrible, by the way. I mean, it's really bad, but it is just softball after softball. I watch all of them just in case somebody says something dumb, but the questions are so stupid that and so terrible that they'll never say anything dumb. But it's a lot like the Saturday Night Live skit with Chris Farley as the movie critic saying, "Hey, why are you so awesome?" That's kind of what the questions are. And Johnson says, "Well, I'm not a journalist," and I'm like, "Well, no shit, you're not a journalist because I watch your show. It's terrible." And then if you read his website, all of the articles, and he admits this, but all the articles are pretty much written by AI. It is just, but he so badly wants to be like a media guy, and he so badly wants to be seen as like, the Terry Gross of the right, because I'm inviting you in for a conversation. But Trevor Lee goes on that podcast. I know that they're sitting on an episode that they haven't released yet, and I just can't wait to see what that one's going to be because I saw the interview they did with Trevor's mom, who's running for Davis County Commission, and that was something else.
Okay, I got to keep my eye out for that one.
Yep, you have to. I'm not going to name the name of the show because I don't want to give them a free plug. But if you feel like a little bit of self-flagellation, seek it out because it's worth it.
Okay, so did anything surprising make it to the governor's desk yet? Anything that maybe snuck through? I know that they always put a train car together at the end of the session. You know, how much poison managed to sneak out after it had died in committee or on the floor.
Well, they cut taxes again this year.
Oh, great.
And the thing that people, I always have to explain to them is when they are cutting income taxes, that is paid for out of money that could go to public education, higher education, or some social services. That's the only thing that money can be used to pay for.
Right.
And they've cut taxes by $1.5 billion over the past 5 years. That is $1.5 billion of future revenue every single year that could go to education or some social services for disabled Utahns. And then when you break down who benefits from these tax cuts, they are extraordinarily weighted towards the wealthiest Utahns. There was a study that I saw that if you aggregate all 5 of these tax cuts and put them together, the top 1% of income earners in the state, their total tax cut from these 5 years of tax cuts is about $20,000 a year. Those at the bottom, you know, if you're looking, they're like maybe $70 a year in the middle, and then down to maybe $25-$30 a year at the end, if they get anything back, because even though we do have an earned income tax credit, it's not refundable. So, you know, you can get a tax credit, you don't pay any income taxes, but you're not going to get anything back either.
Well, that I got to admit, that doesn't surprise me.
And they get really really prickly when you point out that it's those at the upper end of the scale who benefit the most from these tax cuts. I remember that I wrote about this probably in 2024 when they were doing a big tax cut, and then Representative Brady Brammer, who's now a senator, he got up on the House floor and he just ripped into people who were criticizing him. He said those who earn the most should benefit the most, and and a lot of people are saying, why not fund schools, because they've never really fully funded schools, and then they're taking more out for the vouchers program and pushing more towards homeschool resources and micro schools and taking over higher education. So that's one thing that I always try to pay attention to, because they love to talk about doing tax cuts. And then I'm sure that everyone saw the thing they did right at the end, because there's the Prop 4 repeal measure, which appears to have enough signatures to get on the ballot, but it's going to be close. It's going to be really tight, as there is a signature removal drive to try and drop them below the required number of signatures. If they can do it in one Senate district, then they won't qualify for the ballot. And they were really upset about Better Boundaries, who originally put Prop 4 on the ballot, sending out these signature removal kits that had prepaid postage to send it back in, and they sued over it. They actually dropped that lawsuit last week, like at the end, and didn't explain why, but they dropped the lawsuit. But lawmakers made the change that you could not use prepaid postage to send a signature removal request in, and that they made that change in like the final hours, and then sent it to the governor, and he immediately signed it. So now you can't use that.
They're not just moving the goalposts; they're changing the sport.
Oh yeah, they do that all the time. And this is one of the things that I always like to point out to people. When you talk about a veto-proof majority, it's not just about a veto. If you can get that 2/3 in both the House and the Senate, it also makes it so you can't launch a referendum. If you remember the union busting bill from last year, and they passed in 2025, it did not get that 2/3 in the House and Senate, which allowed for the referendum effort to put it on the ballot, and then they ended up repealing it. That's the first thing it does. And then sometimes in these bills, it has an immediate effective date if they can get the 2/3 vote. And here is probably the best example of that. When they were first passing the ban on gender affirming care for transgender youth in the state, as it went through both committees, it started in the Senate, went through Senate committee, went through the Senate, went through House committee, and that version of the bill said there was going to be a grace period where people who were on hormone therapy, puberty blockers, there was going to be a grace period, and it wouldn't go in effect until May. The bill comes up for the very final vote in the House. And Katie Hall was the House sponsor. Mike Kennedy, who was the main sponsor of the bill, standing right behind her. And on the House floor, she added a provision that said if they get 2/3 in both the House and the Senate, it goes into effect immediately. They added that in at the last minute. It got 2/3 in the House, 2/3 in the Senate, and it went into effect immediately when the governor signed it. They did that without any public input, but that's the other thing that they can do with the 2/3 vote, and that's what they did this year with the bill about changing how you remove your signatures. They did the same thing when they passed the voucher program back in 2023 for the first time. They made sure that they had 2/3 in the House and the Senate so it wouldn't be subject to a referendum, because they tried this in 2007. They passed a vouchers bill in 2007, but it got killed at the ballot box because of a referendum, and they wanted to make sure that they did not that it didn't go up for a referendum again, because it probably would have failed.
There's no consequences.
No, and they've got a super majority. There's absolutely no consequences. But the other thing is, the voters seem to be okay with that because they don't punish them at the ballot box. It's if you look at what happened in 2024, Republicans lost one seat in the House. It was in West Valley, Judy Roner's seat, but then they gained a seat in Davis County, which was Rosemary Lesser's seat. So, they ended up with the same number of seats. There's just, they don't get punished for this kind of behavior.
Do you think that the signature removal quest is going to work?
It's going to be close. It's going to be close. There's one Senate district. I think it's Senate District 15. And I can actually pull up my numbers here real fast. Hang on. I can tell you what their margin is. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, it's Senate District 15. They are only 354 signatures above the threshold. So if 354 more signature removals come in, actually 355, then they will drop below and they will not qualify for the ballot. And then at that point, you're going to see lawsuits again. And I think there's going to be a lawsuit even if they aren't able to drop that Senate district below the threshold. But if you look at the numbers, the people who are trying to block this and keep it off the ballot, they are really targeting the Senate districts with the thin margins. And that's happened before. If you remember back in 2018, we had actually 4 ballot initiatives that initially qualified for the ballot. We had medical cannabis, we had Medicaid expansion, we had Prop 4, but then there was another one that would have gotten rid of the caucus and convention system. That was the count my vote. And they had enough signatures initially to put it on the ballot, but there was a targeted campaign to get people to remove their signatures, and I think they got a couple hundred people across 2 Senate districts, and that's all it took, and they didn't qualify.
We did. I ran into a couple of petition gatherers out in the wild, and both of them pitched me on the reason you're signing the petition was to return the voice to the Utah voter. And I was like, okay, that's exactly the opposite. Why are you lying? And my question to the first girl was, are you lying on purpose, or is that what they told you to say? Was that what you were trained to say? Because, here's Prop 4, here's the history. And she was talking to like 3 or 4 people at the time, and I just kind of laid it out. I'm like, all you guys are trying to do is silence the voice of the Utah voter by taking away something they voted that they wanted. And she's like, I don't understand what you're talking about, sir. And I'm like, okay, so maybe you were trained a lie. Because both of them had accents. They're both from out of town.
Well, the real reason why they want to put this Prop 4 repeal on the ballot, the real reason they want to overturn Prop 4, it's not about the congressional districts. That's not it. It's about the Senate and House districts. If they draw those seats blind, meaning one of the things you can't do is consider where an incumbent is, and that's the first thing that they do when they draw the maps. If there's an independent commission that can't consider that, you're going to see a lot of people be put into seats that aren't safe anymore or running against each other. And that is an existential threat to a lot of the more hardline Republicans up there. it's not going to lead to a Democratic majority. It's not going to do that. Utah is not that kind of state.
No.
But what it could do is it could threaten the super majority. And if the super majority ever falls, where if the number of Republicans drops below 50 in the House or below 20 in the Senate, then all of a sudden they have to govern differently because they're not able to just make those decisions in their caucus and ram it through.
I've tried to explain that to family members before, and I know you've run into this as well because this is just things that we hear, but it's I understand that the legislature's bad, but not my guy. My guy's fine.
Well, most guys don't even know. Most people don't even know who their lawmaker is. Well, that's why you see when Brad Wilson ran for U.S. Senate, I was telling people close to him, I said, he's not going to win because nobody knows who the hell he is. Yep. Those titles, the title of lawmaker, it's very important to the people in that building. But you get outside of that building, you get 4 blocks away, nobody knows who the hell any of them are. Yeah. And that's the uphill battle that a lot of them are fighting. There's a reason why you don't see a lot of legislators making the leap to higher office. Mike Kennedy, he did it in 2024, moving from the Utah Senate to the U.S. House of Representatives, but that was because he was running in a very safe, open Republican seat.
Sure. Okay, we got a couple minutes left.
Yep. Sorry, I mean to take up all your time.
This is why I wanted to have you on. So you're suing the legislature. How's that going?
Well, just quick background. When I started Utah Political Watch, I applied for a media credential, and they changed the rules. They said, according to the new rules, independent media freelancers would not be eligible to have a press pass up at the Capitol. They changed the rules. Just so happens that I am the only person who did not get a press pass. Same thing happened again this year. But we filed suit in the District Court of Utah. The judge dismissed that case, which was kind of bizarre because they never engaged on the merits of the argument. It's pretty clear that they changed the rules specifically to target me. At least that's what we are alleging in our suit. After we filed suit, they made up a couple more rules. One of them was I didn't have an editor. There wasn't an editor, and there's no one in the organization with the ability to hire and fire, since I own this website and I run it. And it was quite striking because we've had to go through sworn depositions on both sides. And by the way, the legislature is paying an outside law firm from Washington, D.C. hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars to defend them against this lawsuit rather than give me a press pass because I tend to hurt their feelings and they don't like that. But when we were doing the sworn depositions with them, they were very adamant that they needed someone in the organization that they could hire and fire. And when we asked them about that, it's one of them said, and I believe the quote was, so there's someone that we can talk to make sure the story gets reported correctly. Essentially, they want someone in a media organization that they can jawbone if they don't like what the reporter is doing. That's not how any of this should work, and it should frankly piss everyone off that they're acting like this. But again, they're acting with impunity. That case was dismissed. We've appealed to the 10th Circuit Court, and we actually have oral arguments in the 10th Circuit on Tuesday, the 17th, and it's going to be interesting because we had asked for a preliminary injunction to get a press pass for this session, and it's going before a 3-judge panel. They denied that because they said that we were trying to change the circumstances of the case, and I understand that. But one of the judges would have granted, which means they're probably going to be with us when we argue the merits of the case. So we're only going to need to convince one more to overturn this decision. And my lawyers think that we've got a pretty good shot. Well,
I'm rooting for you. I certainly am.
I'm rooting for me too, but I'm rooting for me just because of the First Amendment. I don't know if you can see this here, but that's what I have tattooed on my forearm.
Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, I've got the First Amendment literally tattooed on my forearm because it reminds me why I do this. Because it is there's a reason why the First Amendment is first. There is a reason why it is the first and not the second or the third or the fourth. There's a reason why they put it first. And I believe truly in my heart. So I'm hoping that the judges see it our way. Just this whole thing against independent media makes no sense because that's where everything is going. That's where media is going. When we were asking them, one of the reasons they said that they made these rules is so that there would be no discretion at all when they tried to grant or deny a press pass. You have to check these boxes. And so my lawyers, when questioning them under oath, said, okay, so what about Tucker Carlson? He's independent. He runs his own website. He doesn't have an editor telling him what to do. There's no one with hiring and firing. Would you be able to give, would you give Tucker Carlson a press pass? Well, according to their rules, right, it should be no, because it checks all his boxes. Their answer was, well, it depends. It depends. We'd have to do more research. Okay, but then that's just discretion. They contradicted themselves at every turn. It made no sense. And so I'm hoping that the judges see that.
Well, I do too. And it is First Amendment is my favorite of the amendments, followed by the Fourth. And then
I'm kind of a Third Amendment absolutist, where we're not going to be quartering soldiers.
That's fair. No, I dig it. But no, I mean it's concerning because you are being singled out. And the reason that you're being singled out is because you do the deep dive that I really don't see anymore anywhere else.
Well, and they've got higher ambitions. Mm-hmm. Mike Schultz is going to run for governor in 2028. You've got Carrie Ann Lisenby running for Congress against Blake Moore. I think that's kind of a fool's errand, but who knows? So you have people who have higher ambitions, and they want to control their own message. And if you look at what the House is doing, sure, the Senate has their daily media availability. It doesn't do anything. It's just their way of pretending to be accessible. But they have done whatever they can to move their own communications in-house and then try to tell the media what they want to do. And you do have members of the media who have you ever heard the term access journalist? Yeah. We've got there are a number of members of the Utah Press Corps who are access journalists who, trade favorable coverage for information. There's a reason why the Deseret News gets so many scoops. Yeah. There's a reason why so many stories first come to the D News, because they know that they're going to report them the way that they want.
Well, I remember that from, my days. I mean, granted, I'm on the left, so I very rarely found somebody who needed anything from me that I could build that sort of relationship with. But it was like you would find something out. I mean, my last campaign was 2016, and we were running against Herbert, and every time he'd step on his weenie, we'd put out a press release, and it was just like, well, you're running for office, of course you're upset. So we're just gonna blow this one off.
Well, and there's so many avenues now for people to get that information out. Stay tuned. I'm working on a story about an effort, a well-funded effort here in Utah by some people on the right to establish their own news network of a sort. I don't think it's going to work because conservatives, what they want from their news, conservatives aren't news consumers. What they want is conspiracy and Trump worship for the most part. Yep. Even if you look at the Wall Street Journal, who reads that? It's not Republicans. It's mostly Democrats. Because, it's not the Republican base who reads the Wall Street Journal, who read these conservative outlets. They have Fox News. They have One American News Network. And they're pretty happy about that. A local conservative news outlet, I just don't think it's going to work. Plus, they already have the D News.
Well, and it'll probably go about the same way as every time conservatives try and put together a comedy show.
And we can talk about that in another episode in 20 years when you have me on again.
I'm gonna look. My worry for you coming on my idiot show is you are a journalist, like for real. And we've had a couple of journalists on, in the past. We had Bob Gerke came on years ago because he and Forrest were friends.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think Bob might be the only one. Now that I think about it, yeah. Robert Gerke was the only reporter we've had on in 15 years, and that was more of a favor because I don't. How do I put this? When you were working like at the Trib.
Oh yeah, I mean, there would have been rules against doing that sort of thing, but now I own my own thing.
Yeah,
I'm doing my own thing, and so I can decide, well, I'm a little freer to talk about this. I don't know. I at least once a week I do a live stream, which I'm really found. It's been an interesting experience for me because there's a real appetite out there for people to understand what their government is doing and what's happening in politics. And, I've been doing this for so long. I know where all the bodies are buried, and I can explain how we got to this point, and I enjoy that. But, and I'm going to where the audience is. I'm going on TikTok and Instagram and Twitch. Don't have a lot of Twitch viewers, but you got to be there. But anyway, there is an appetite for this sort of thing out there, to explain and just sort of, explain and not talk down to someone and just say, hey, okay, I understand that you don't understand this. Here, I want to explain this in a way that you'll get. So what these people are doing, because when you have an uninformed public, people get away with a lot of stuff.
It's true. So what's next?
We've got the caucuses on the 17th. We've got conventions coming up. I think that there are going to be some really entertaining conventions. I'm really looking forward to the Davis County Republican Convention, because I think that Stuart Adams is going to lose at that convention. He's got a real stiff challenge for the Republican nomination. So that's going to be really interesting to watch how they operate up there, because Davis County is the beating heart of the far right conspiracy Republicans. That and a lot of people think it's Utah County, which is the gateway to the John Birch Society, but the real extremists have moved north to Davis County. That's why, if you look at it, there's one candidate this year who is collecting signatures only, not going through convention at all. And that's Representative Ray Ward, who is a Republican in Davis County. He was treated so poorly at the Davis County Convention in 2024. And he said he was never going to go through the convention again. He's completely unopposed. He doesn't even have a Democratic opponent. He doesn't have a Republican, but he's only collecting signatures. He's not going to go to convention. And the Davis County GOP is absolutely furious with him, but I don't blame him.
No, why would you? Why would you punch yourself in the nuts just because that's what everybody else is doing?
Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of have to, because that's who controls this sort of thing.
Yeah, let him collect his signatures. Good for him, I guess.
Well, I mean, it works for him. I mean, he's one of the few. He's one of the more reasonable ones up there. But even he has a hard time going against a lot of the extremist stuff there. I know. Well, I can't really tell that story publicly, but it's interesting.
Yeah, when that one breaks, get back to me.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, sir.
And I'll pencil in an appearance in 2046.
I'm going to get you back quicker than that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, Jeff. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Snakes, zombies, sharks, heights, speaking in public. The list of fears is endless. But while you're clutching your blanket in the dark, wondering if that sound in the hall was actually a footstep, the real danger is in your hand, when you're behind the wheel. And while you might think a great white shark is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
In a world where MAGA is banning and burning books, it is a revolutionary act to read. It's Monday in America is a bold collection from The Left Show's J.M. Bell about politics, family, aging, and the uncomfortable truths we keep avoiding. No talking points, just real life in a divided country. Order your copy of It's Monday in America today for just $14.99 at mondayinamerica.com. If you're looking to feel hopeful or inspired, or if you're just frustrated and unsure about where we're headed, this book provides a unique look at the life of a Gen X liberal, the challenges and victories, and the question, what kind of world have we built for our children? It's Monday in America. $14.99 at mondayinamerica.com. It's Monday in America. Better to die on your feet than live on your knees.
For some reason, you are still listening to The Left Show. All right then, here's some more of that, I suppose.
As I've always said, the best interview is the one where you don't have to talk.
That's right.
You know, hey, look, here's the thing with a guy like Bryan Schott. He is so just past capacity full of information. When politically we talk about people who know where the bodies are buried, that's Bryan. That's why the legislature fucks with him. That's why they're going to court. That's why they're going in, I believe, the 10th Circuit this week.
Yep.
So good luck, sir. We wish you the best. I hope that oral arguments go well. And that the First Amendment is protected by the judiciary.
Mm-hmm.
So
it sure isn't protected by the administrative, that's for sure, right now.
Yep. So
yeah, I realized he was our first interview, or our first reporter on the show, not named Bob, which was good. I'm glad we'll get him back in the future. I don't know. It seems to me like when we do these things, because we're an opinion show more than anything. We report the news, but then we give our opinion on it. Right. And so having real journalists, real reporters, is not only a treat, but also it feels like, should we have them on? Because we're just doing this shit and saying our shit and sometimes being speculative, and we have nothing to back it up, because that's what opinion stuff is. That's the problem that happened with KSL too. But CBS, they brought on that one woman who everything she does is opinion pieces. It's all she's ever done is editorial.
Yeah.
And it's like, John Oliver just roasted her not too long ago. And it's like, yeah, she should not have anything to do with CBS News, because she never had anything to do with news in the first place. She was an opinion writer for New York Times, then started her own opinion website and podcast. What can she contribute as news? She's not a journalist. I do not deign to say I am a journalist. I am an opinion person. I have an opinion, and I get to have my opinion every week on The Left Show.
I am a loudmouthed former political operative.
Right.
And that's it. I exist to share my opinion because I'm not doing what a guy like Bryan does. I'm not out there digging. I'm not out there. I have these conversations, and the truth is, there's a lot of conversations that I have even now in when I'm not working politics full time, to where I really should call a fucking reporter from time to time. I just haven't had to do that in years, and every once in a while I hear a little tidbit, and I was like, I should hand that off.
Hand that off to someone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like journalism isn't just about, they go out and get a story and they write about the story. They've got to back everything up. Otherwise they can get sued for libel. And they back it all up. Everything they have evidence for it. They can't print it if there's no proof. That's the thing about a good journalist and a good newspaper. And everybody says, "Oh, we don't trust the media. They're false." Well, there are things that aren't going to be reported because they're owned by corporations who don't want things reported against them.
Right.
But when they do report things, they are backed up by facts.
I agree. No, I'm with you.
As a Starfleet captain just recently said, it's not propaganda. It's science.
Yeah. Yeah. My thing with Bryan is he and we've known each other for 20 plus years, and we've never had him on the show before. I don't even think we've invited him on the show before because I just assumed you're a hard hitting news reporter, man. And why would you come on my stupid little opinion show? And instead, he shows up for the first time in 15 years and knocks it out of the fucking park. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Bryan. Good luck in court this week. Good luck and Godspeed. Or, whatever stimulant your deity of choice would use. That's what it is. But now, sir, now it is time for us to give our deep dives. It's time for the Left Show's Deep Dives. Every week, your intrepid hosts take a detailed look at important topics from across the globe that matter to you, whether you know it or not. Let's see how this goes. Best of luck, folks. All right. The coin flip this week says that I go first. So my topic, for the most part, started from the Department of Homeland Security bought a warehouse, a gigantic warehouse in Salt Lake City, and plans on turning it into a detention center. The thing about the warehouse is it was valued at $90 million, and ICE paid $145.4 million for it.
Of course they did. Because that real estate agent saw them coming. It's like,
well, it was the owner,
whatever I ask,
saying that he wasn't going to sell to the government.
Right.
And my thing is when you get offered $50.5 million more than your building is worth, you could set aside your soul.
Yep.
And apparently that's what's happened. But what it comes down to, these detention centers, to me, and here doth begin my rant, they represent a gigantic monument to the murder of due process in America. People will be shoved in there who will not see their day in court. And due process, as it is enshrined in the Constitution, is not just for citizens, no matter what white people would have you believe. Due process is for everyone in trouble in America. Because you are innocent until proven guilty, no matter where the fuck you're from, when something happens stateside. That's just how this works. So due process being one of the more important principles of our free society. At its core, it means the government can't take away your life, your liberty, or your property without following fair process and the rule of law. In the United States, this protection comes from the 5th and the 14th Amendments to the Constitution. But the idea itself is even older than America. It goes back centuries to the basic belief that power must be limited and that no person, no matter how powerful, gets to punish someone simply because they want to. Gosh! Certainly sounds like that's the opposite of the current administration, doesn't it?
Yep.
So due process means the government has to prove its case. You have the right to know what you're accused of. It means you have the right to defend yourself, to present evidence, and to be judged by an impartial system rather than by politics, anger, or mob rule. Without due process, justice becomes arbitrary. Anybody could be punished based on rumor, suspicion, or personal vendetta. History shows us that what happens when due process disappears, innocent people are imprisoned, rights are ignored, and power goes completely fucking unchecked. But due process isn't just about protecting people that we agree with. I remember years ago the ACLU standing up for something Klan adjacent, where they had been denied their chance to be loud And the ACLU's like, doesn't matter if they're garbage, they have a right to speak. So it matters most when it protects people that we disagree with, because once a government can deny fair treatment to one person, it can deny it to anybody, which is sort of the point that the left's out here trying to make. And that's why due process is not a technicality or a loophole. It's the actual foundation of liberty. It ensures that justice is determined by evidence and law and not by emotion or political pressure. In the end, due process protects everyone, or it's supposed to. It's supposed to protect the accused from wrongful punishment. It protects the integrity of the justice system, and it protects society from the dangers of unchecked power, because in a free country, if justice isn't fair, you're not in a free country. Fairness requires due process.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the end of my rant.
We have lost... I mean, this has been going on since 2002, 2001, 2002, with the pass of the Patriot Act. We've lost a lot of what were expected rights that we would have in this country, whatever those rights happen to be. So we lost due process in a lot of ways. We lost habeas corpus in a lot of ways. And this has been continuing here with Trump's with the Trump administration's seizure of illegal aliens. Everyone deserves due process. Now they could argue, oh no, this is exactly how we do it normally. You're arrested, you're put in jail, and then you have your day in court. Well, a lot of times you go to jail if you could pay the bail money. Your day in court may be 3 months down the road. You pay your bail money, at least you can go back to work and live until your court date and get through until your court date. But in this, in this case, they're thrown in these detention centers and not let out. The detention centers are not well stocked. Most of the time, they can't even be considered a detention center because they don't have a working kitchen. They're technically not supposed to hold them that long without a working kitchen.
Yep.
And yet, they feed them garbage food. They don't give them medical treatment. They, give them a single bathroom to use, or maybe 2 bathrooms to use, which of course wind up just destroyed after a while. And you've got guards working there who could give a shit. They
give a shit. They just don't give the right shit.
Exactly.
They give a shit about Trump. They give a shit about cruelty. They give a shit about denying of rights and imprisonment and torture and abuse and
they
rape.
give a shit about the bonus they're supposed to get. But the funny thing about the bonus is they signed a thing that said the bonus is paid. It's a $50,000 bonus, right? It's paid $10,000 a year over 5 years. If you quit or are fired for any reason, you have to pay that money back to the federal government, the full amount. It will be taxed at 40% when you get the bonus, but you're still going to have to pay that 40% that they took in taxes.
Yeah.
And fired for any reason means if we get our way and Trump is impeached and we end all this bullshit that's going on with the Department of Homeland Security and immigration, these guys are going to wind up getting fired and it was, if you leave for any reason, then suddenly they're going to be forced to pay it back based on their contract they signed.
It's the way with Trump is there's always a trick.
Mm-hmm. What's
always,
the grift? What's going to make him the most money? Yeah.
Actually, I don't even think it's that. I don't even think it's about how much it makes him. I think it's how much he can cause pain and frustration to regular people, to folks, to working class people. It rolls along with his not paying his bills. It is not paying his contractors. The fact that we're on, I think, the 3rd contractor for the East Wing bullshit because he didn't pay the first 2. And these maggot dipshits with their fucking farm or their construction implements show up. Well, he'll pay me because he's Trump. He's going to take care of me. Goo, 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 goo. And then he doesn't. And they're like, hey, you were supposed to pay me. And doesn't. And that's where we are.
Yeah.
Okay. I I close my prepared statement and I turn the time over to you for your deep dive, sir.
Yes. So there is a South Africa. Let's talk about South Africa. South Africa.
Diplomatic community.
So South Africa was colonized by Belgian and British citizens back in the 19th century. They liked it because it was being at the southern tip of Africa. It wasn't like the rest of Africa. The only problem they had were all the black people running around. And they basically created this separate society where white people were separated from the black people through apartheid. Nelson Mandela opposed it. A lot of different people opposed it. I remember in the 80s, the FBI or the CIA or somebody put out a video that stated that Nelson Mandela was a socialist or a communist, and he should not be. The U.S. government should not do anything with him, any business with him. But the problem is that popular opinion around Nelson Mandela said the opposite of that.
Right.
And the U.S. wound up having to acknowledge him as not only a liberator but a president. He got 27 years in prison, and then when he was freed, there was this group of white people living in this town that kind of freaked out. They're like, "There's going to be a brutal race war. We're going to have to do all the work the black people were doing, and they're going to take everything away from us." So a group of people left this area that they lived in, and they purchased some land so that they couldn't be forced to integrate. And they built a town called Orania there. It's not even a sundowner town. You can't live there unless somebody invites you to buy in, and then you are a co-owner of the village that you live in now. So it's only for white people. They will only sell to white people. They do their own manual labor there. They take care of all of that. And anytime somebody wants to talk about a race war, they head down to Orania. They send a reporter down to Orania to talk to the villagers of Orania, or as I like to call them, the co-investors of the village of Orania. And they will talk to them about, what it's like to live in such a horrible country where, the black people that had once been kept in their place but were now taking over. Thing is if you walk outside of Orania and you go talk to any white person living outside of Orania and ask them what it's like to live in South Africa, they're like, "I love it. It's great here. Everything's fine. I don't know why this is why you guys all think there's a problem down here." So much so that the Trump administration offered a refugee status to white South Africans who are escaping the horrible violence of post-apartheid South Africa. And I'm like, post-apartheid, that was the 90s. We're now in the 21st century. We're way past post-apartheid, and people are just fine. Yes, there was some financial issues. Their GDP fell. It always happens when a totalitarian government falls to a more democratic society. It's figuring out how to make everything work again, because everything worked when Big Brother said this is how it works. Now it's the people, and you got to figure out how to make it work. But it's working now. It just took time. We saw that with Ireland. It took them a long time before they finally said, "All right, here's what we're going to do," and they fixed it. South Africa has fixed it, and they're on their way up, and they will soon be a very important trade center and everything else once again. But Orania is not the example. It is not what South Africa is like. It is not a bunch of white people terrified of black people, except that they made that up. That is their invention, that it is made up. It's the same thing we're seeing here with white supremacy on the rise here in the United States. The idea that this anti-DEI bullshit, it's about how we are, as a white race, being pushed down by other races and the government saying, no, they have to choose a black guy over you to take the job. I'm like, if we're all equal, and we come into an interview and we're all equal and we all have the same experience, we all have the same background, one guy happens to be of color and he gets the job and I don't, at this point, I don't think it was because of his skin color. Usually I think his or her skin color, usually I think it's because they meshed better with the team in the manager's opinion than I would.
Okay.
I just chalk it up to, and I think that's how we should be looking at things. It's how I was trained to think as an actor. You go out for a part, and they say, so, you know, they have you read the part, and then they cast somebody completely different than you, and you have to realize it's apples and oranges. They were looking for an apple. You were one of the oranges. Next time, you could be the apple. So
can I be a dragon fruit?
Yep. You just got to keep trying. You just got to keep trying. And that was the thing with this anti-DEI stuff. It's like, you know, Charlie Kirk famously said he wouldn't, if he got on a plane and saw a black pilot, he would worry that guy wasn't qualified. I'm like, oh, he's qualified. He can't even apply for the job unless he's got flight experience. And then once he has the job, he has to go through all their flight school, everything. He will have to train extensively on their airlines until he's allowed to fly them. And only then will he be given the keys, as it were, to fly a passenger jet across the country.
Well, and there's a pretty good chance that during his training or education to be a pilot, he had some pretty bigoted white people thinking Charlie Kirk thoughts at him and had to work twice as hard as the fucking white candidates did.
Precisely.
Of that I have no doubt.
And the same thing goes as if he was a she, born a woman. It's gonna be twice as hard to work that way. Skin color, gender, sexual orientation, all of it, you have to work twice as hard as people who look like me do in a workplace. And it's just don't look at her when the next time the news brings up Orania or interviews somebody in South Africa, ask yourself, was this a manufactured village with a bunch of co-investors talking about the horrible things black people are doing when they have no experience whatsoever living among black people? Is that the problem? Is that what you're watching? Ask yourself that.
Fair question. Outstanding. Good rant. Just to finish off the hour, I have a little news. This one is on here for you and I.
Yes.
And if anybody else wants to enjoy this article, welcome to giving a shit about what the fuck Scotland does.
My future home.
Yeah, oh fuck! I hope someday, man.
I tell you, if they opened up a thing saying we're opened up for any U.S. refugee, I'll be like, right here, I'm oppressed.
Hello, I'm oppressed. Shit, I don't look oppressed.
No.
Nothing about me that looks oppressed.
When I was in Scotland, I looked like I was eating half of Scotland, and yet I was losing weight while I was in Scotland because the quality of food is so much better there. Yeah.
I did, just as a weird aside, I bought fish sticks at the supermarket the other day. These are the Guinness version.
Oh, I had some of those.
They were tasty.
Mm-hmm.
They were tasty. About the only thing I have to complain about them is that I was out of cocktail sauce and didn't notice. And that's what I like. Not a tartar guy.
Not a tartar guy. I like the cocktail sauce, huh?
I love cocktail sauce.
I love cocktail sauce myself. My wife doesn't like it, but she did buy some for me. I just haven't opened it. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. So, the United Kingdom is facing a, quote, seismic moment as the National Party target election wins, says John Sweeney. The UK, John Sweeney has said, with the prospect of the election of First Ministers in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland in May, who are all committed to breaking up the United Kingdom. Speaking at the Scottish National Party's campaign conference ahead of the Scottish parliamentary elections, the First Minister told delegates, quote, "For people watching around the world, there could be no clearer sign that Westminster's time is up." You know what? You wrap Brexit or Brexit in a little basket, and you try to deliver that to my house. I'm going to use fire to chase you off. I mean, just you cannot calculate. You probably can if you're an economist, which I am not, obviously. But you can't calculate just how fucking messy Brexit was and how much damage it did, especially to Scotland, Wales, and Ireland.
Yeah, it was a massive anti-immigration policy. Really was what Brexit, they couched it around, oh, well, it's going to devalue the pound if we switch to the euro in this country, and that's what they're wanting us to do. In reality, they were like, yeah, we'd love you to switch to the euro, but you can hold on to the pound as long as it's, working for you. But what Britain didn't like is that being part of the EU, anyone from any EU country could come and live there. Just move right in.
Yep.
And as always, what happens when you have immigration is people say, oh, well, they're not integrating. Well, they were. They don't speak the language. Well, they learned it. It's all part of it. English is probably the most commonly spoken language in every country in Europe. And these people would these people would come and immigrate there. And it wasn't about immigrating. It was moving. Once you're part of the EU, it's like if I were to suddenly decide to move to, I don't know where I'd move in this country that I would even could stand, California. Let's say I wanted to move to California. I don't have to immigrate to California. I could just go and start living in California. I can just move there. I can get a job there and move there, And that's really what the EU set up for the entirety of Europe. And when Britain was a part of it, anybody from any other country could go and live there. And Scotland was like
people out that had emigrated over inside the EU was a huge factor in the Brexit debate.
Yeah.
People were very worried, and they had reason to be.
Well, that's because a lot of EU countries were accepting refugees, and they're like, if these refugees become citizens, then they can just, citizens of that country, they can just move here. And we don't want them here. That's the problem. We don't like those kind here. We don't like their type here. Scotland, on the other hand, was all about it. They've had so much trouble since Brexit. They've lost most of their hospitality industry. They've lost most of their medical industry. Most people who practice medicine do it down in England, not in Scotland. And so the wait time for national health is ridiculous. It's emergencies first. It's all triage. It's emergencies first. So if you need to get something done, sometimes you can just be trapped in a hospital bed for months, longer than you absolutely should be, simply because there's no doctors to actually help treat you.
I could use a little hospital bedtime right now. Just to wrap up the hour, because now we're late. GOP Congressman Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee says that Muslims don't belong in American society and says that it's a lie that diverse groups of people can respectfully engage with one another, to which I have nothing more to say than white guy says what?
Exactly.
Because I get along with people of all faiths, creeds, colors, religions, orientations, all of it. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. And hell, I'm friends with some assholes. So, I got mirrors. So
I know quite a few assholes, myself being one of them. But no, this guy, he's not only Islamophobic, but he's pointing all this at Zoran Mandami. And I'm like, you know what? Mandami, it's all about prove it right now. And if he can prove it, then your day is done. And that's really what you're afraid of. You don't have the answers to fixing the common man's problems because you don't work for the common man. You work for the wealthy. And this guy has the ideas, and he does. And you can't pick on him for his ideas. And people are, it doesn't play well when you pick on democratic socialism because of Bernie Sanders and AOC. So what have you got left? His faith, his religion.
Yep. You're going to do what you got to do to make your racist point. You good faith little creep.
Yep.
That's all I have. All right. That's it for the show this week. Thanks you so much for listening. Please pay attention to our begging on the fundraiser. There's a really good reason for it all. One of the points I brought up on the comic book show is we use 3 different computers to record the show. 2 of them are so old that we can't upgrade Windows on them. They're too old and impossibly slow. One of them, the one I'm looking at right now, is the same computer we started this show with 15 years ago. So, when we fundraise for gear, I hope you understand I am using this shit to death.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is just fucking falling apart at this point. So we're looking for a little help on that. We've got a couple of pieces of software that we use that have insanely high annual subscription rates, and we do need a couple of hard drives for storage. And then we got popular again because whenever authoritarianism rears its ugly head, people run to the Left Show, which is great, and we're happy to have you. But we need to pay for that bandwidth for the new listeners. Sorry, old listeners. If you're a new listener, hey, just throw us $10-20. If you pop over to theleftshow.com and click on the spring fundraiser banner right there, you will see that not only are we asking for stuff, we're offering stuff when you give. We got a long list of things that we'll put together for you if you give at certain levels. It's all at theleftshow.com. It's hard to miss. And then now we're going to go over and do Patreon. Patreon.com/DFenMedia, DEFEN Media. Every week that we record, we go over to Patreon and do some special content for you, our Patreon listener. So I will say thank you to Bryan Schott, who has left the building. I'll say thank you to J.C. Carter.
You're welcome, America.
To my wife, who's off doing important stuff today. Or as the news folks say, she's on assignment. We'll take that.
We'll take that.
All right, everybody. Don't forget, do not peel the banana.
If you've made it this far, you might as well join us on Patreon. Patreon.com/DFenMedia. This episode and more always available at www.theleftshow.com.